Happy Saturday.
Hello, hello. It's that time again.
It's Saturday Night Live and we're here and it's still light outside here and it's just really warming up a little bit.
And again,
Kind
nothing's happening.
Yeah, it's so boring. It's such a boring time to be alive. I just can't even stand it. Well, this is just going to be another fun night. I really look forward to our Saturday night shows because we it gives us an opportunity just to be with people that are special and we care about and we want to learn more about and all of that. And so it's just I'm just really happy to do it. Don't you feel that way, Tricia?
I do. I mean, we have so many awesome people out there that are putting out great content and that are just exceptional decoders. Um, it's and then we do we have to digest the heavy stuff. We have to give it to the audience and help them along. And I think it's just nice that, we can take a little bit of a back seat to understanding other people that are in the movement.
Hmm.
Maybe we're, a little bit less harsh in some of the things that we maybe we don't go down the rabbit holes that others do. But I think that everything is relevant, and I just like what it is that we're doing, and I love being able just to meet other people that may have been a little bit quieter behind the scenes. And I know now we're mixing it up because our next guest
Hmm.
is by no means quiet and behind the scenes.
Hmm.
So
No,
just
right.
thought we were
Yeah.
going down that path. We're like, we get to mix it up. But then that's the
Well,
thing that I
yeah.
love too, Ellen. It's like
I
we
know.
can do it. We can
I know.
we can do whatever we want.
I know. That's just what's so cool. So I want to just go ahead and bring her on. She is a force and has been a force and in this movement and she's worn so many hats in the Latino community. And so I don't even want to do her justice when I introduce her. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her on, Bianca Gracia, and I'm probably not even pronouncing that well. Bianca, hi.
Hello. How
How
are
are
you
you?
all this
Welcome.
evening?
So I have to say, I went to an independent media event in DC, and there was people and everybody all around and everything, and I just caught eyes with Bianca. She had no idea who I was, and I was just like, I would really like to interview you. And she was like, sure. Sure. And then we happened to see each other like a couple weekends after that at the Veterans Day parade.
Oh, that's right. That's
And
right.
and actually, I'll have to show you. That's the one picture I have. There we are at
Oh
the
my
Veterans.
gosh.
That is so cool. That's cute.
There we were. And
I
so
love it.
that was really, really special too. I mean, to walk with General Flynn and oh my
Oh
goodness.
my God, that was so much fun. I was like, when are we doing this again, Dad? So he's like,
I
he's like a father figure to me. So I'm like, when are we doing this again, Dad? I'm ready to go. And he's like, oh my God, you're tiring me. I love that man. He really truly is America's general. To walk that day with him was so awesome. It was the best experience I've ever had.
Me too. I had to pinch myself one time we were walking and the White House was on the right and then he turns around and smiles at all of us and I'm like I started crying, because it was just
Mhm.
overwhelming that we could do that. And then to meet people like you and for you to be able to come on our show and get to know you. I'm just so excited that
Well,
you're
thank
here.
you for being patient because, I know this was back in the last of October and it took us a while to
Yeah.
get here, but there was government shutdown. There was, obviously then there's the holiday season and then you start the new year and, all kinds of stuff. And so I just thank you all so much for being patient and working
Yeah.
around my calendar and your calendar and we've made it happen. So here we are.
Yeah, and timing's everything. I mean, I always trust the timing on everything, you know? So Bianca, I want the audience to know more about you. And I love hearing people's stories, and what got you to where you are today. So can you just start with us about growing up and where you grew up and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I grew up in South Texas, in a small little town in South Texas. And yeah, I mean, I was one of those kids that was somewhat rebellious some days, and some days I was not rebellious. Some days I was like, oh, I'm got to do everything by the book, and but every once in a while I'd have a little rebellious streak. But for the most part, I was the child that was involved in kind of everything. I was always like, drill team, cheerleader, band, key club, drama, theater. I used to compete in theater, and that was my favorite. I used to do UIL. So yeah, I used to do Saturday mornings. We used to have to, in theater, we had to go and we would compete. And I used to love improv, and I used to do poetry prose. And so I did a lot of different things. But I think, then also, like I said, being a cheerleader, and I really love music and I love to dance. And so I was like, cheerleading is great, but I really love dance. And so I went into drill team. So I was like, I would like go drill team to band. I was like, okay, I gotta perform and then I gotta go do, and I played the flute. So I still like kind of know like a little bit of, can pick up a flute and blow into the flute and play the flute. So yeah, I was kind of one of those child that I was involved in everything always. I love to be around people. I love to be around people. And so yeah, that was kind of my upbringing. Graduated the first to graduate in my family, and I remember telling my parents, I'm going to go to college, and they're like, what? Like it's already one thing that you're graduating, but now you're talking like a foreign language, like college. What is that? Like,
Wow.
so I was the first to go to college. I have seven brothers and sisters, and I'm the third of the, it's like the and we're actually we're girl boy girl boy girl boy girl. So that's just how it ended up. But I was the third
Yeah.
oldest, and so yeah, so I ended up going to college. I am literally what Hillary Clinton wanted to be. I actually broke the glass ceiling.
I love it. I love it. And while we're talking, I see somebody commented on Facebook and says, "Hi, Bianca. Don't forget about us, Pasadena, Texas girls that have been with you from the beginning. Hashtag Latinos for Trump 2020 and beyond." From
I
Diana.
love, absolutely not. Listen, I made a video the other day and I said, I am still a grassroots. I was born into the grassroots. I will always be a grassroots. And just because, I've been called to do something bigger on a national level does not mean I forget who I am. It's been a rough 10 years being in this political scene.
Yeah.
And it will eat you up, chew you up, spit you out. Then you get right back up and it still wants to eat you up, chew you up, and spit you out again. And you just have to be resilient and you have to do things. And so, I tell people, I was like, I'm still the same person. I never believe that I'm better than anybody else. I don't think like that. I work really hard to remain humble, and so that's just who I am. And so, yeah, I don't forget about my Pasadena people. I do miss my friends. I miss my friends. I miss seeing them, but I know that they're all working respectively everywhere and really trying to make a difference. And so I
Yeah.
just love y'all.
Oh, yes.
Bianca, were you born in Corpus Christi?
Hmm. Yeah.
I actually lived there till I was 12 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was born in Corpus Christi, born and raised though in Robstown, Texas, believe it or not. And then in ninth grade, I begged my family because Robstown didn't actually have the reputation of people graduating. And so I begged because I really did want to go, and I wanted to do more than just whatever, and remain in a small town mentality. And so I begged my parents to send me to Tolosa Midway. And so I went to Tolosa Midway, and that's where I graduated from, and then went on to college. And moved to San Antonio, and I went to St. Mary's University there. Graduated from there. And while at St. Mary's, my senior year, was it my junior year? Well, because I was senior 2 years, so I think it was the first year of my senior year. There's like these abroad programs, and they were like, oh, study abroad, and so it was mainly they were wanting people to go to Paris, and so but there was like this program that would come to American University in Washington D.C. And I was like, I want to go to Washington, D.C. And they're like, that's not really abroad. And I'm like, well, I'm not going overseas. So that's abroad to me. I'm leaving Texas. So I came to American University, and everyone in the program, everyone, because I was a public justice major with a minor in legal studies. And so everybody comes to DC to intern on Capitol Hill. Well, not Bianca. No, Bianca wanted to be with the worst of the worst. I'm like, no, I want to go work in the jail. And everybody's like, what? The jail? Like, who works in the jail? I was like, so I looked at all these different, opportunities of where to intern. And I was like, I want to go work in the jail. I want to do this. And they were like, you're crazy. And I was the only one in the whole internship program that did not go to Capitol Hill. I went to work in the jail. So I worked pre-trial is what I did. I worked pre-trial. And so I would go to the jail, and I was the one that learned I didn't even know what pre-trial was. Actually, most people don't even know pre-trial exists. They really don't. And so pre-trial is that arm. It's like when you go to jail, right? There's the probation after you get
Mhm.
sentenced, right? Well, nobody really knows that there's a pretrial beforehand. So pretrial is the arm that pretty much does all the intake of everybody who is arrested, and what your job is to determine whether the person that's arrested is a danger to the community or a flight risk. So you do all the background, and then you do the recommendation of bail or detention to the magistrate. And that's what I did. And so that opened
Wow.
up doors. The fact that I did that, it opened up doors. And so when I went back to San Antonio in my second year of college, or of a senior year, I'm sorry, senior year, I said, is this something that like exists over there? Like, oh yeah, it's a big federal agency. I was like, what? It's a federal agency? So I remember I was fearless, bold, and courageous. I went and I knocked on the door, literally knocked on the door of the chief of the Western District of Texas. And like, no one just walks into these places, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, I did. I knocked on the door and I was like, hi, my name is this. I just came back from American University. I interned in pre-trial, da 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 da. And I would like to know if you have a position for me, and they're like, what? No, we don't hire. And I was like, okay, well, this is who I am. This is my resume. You can check me out. I was like, I would love the opportunity to intern here locally at the federal level. I really love to do this. Da 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 da. So anyway, sure enough, they call me later. Like the chief calls me later and says, we've never done this before, but we think we would love to hire you as an contract intern, paid. And I was going to help the pretrial officers with their workload because they were overworked. They could not, they didn't have the budget to really hire more pretrial officers, but they never
Mhm.
really gone and said, oh, we do contract. So in my senior year, I was working at the federal government and pretrial, and it was the most craziest experience ever because I had these attorneys that would come into my office, and they're like, we're representing so and so, and they're these big names of people who've been arrested, and they're like, we really want to work with you, and we don't do detention. And I'm like, what? And I'm like a college kid, so I'm like, well, I'll make the determination on that, right? And so there was like a little power thing there because you knew that you could literally say, judge detention, and you could just end it for that one person and be like, you're going to stay in jail until the whole hearing and go from there. Whoa, what was that?
Your pic your picture went out for some
I
reason. Oh,
know.
there.
What was that? Oh my goodness. I might have to turn on the other light after all. Hang on a second. Hang on.
Yeah,
Because my
no
light.
problem. But, Tricia, when we've talked to people who've worked in that system, Professor David Clements and people like that, you know, you really see by what you were just saying, Bianca, how easily people can be corrupted and bribed and right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's very, and no matter what anybody tells you, it's very easy. But thinking about, I mean, I was just a college kid,
Yeah, that's
and then you
crazy.
find out, like, so you're in college, so you study this public justice and you study the government system and you study all this, and unless you have real life experience, do you really actually know how it works? You can read books about it all day, but unless you really actually have the experience, you don't know how it works. And I never knew, and I don't think people know, they just don't know that the magistrate judge. So I wanted to go to law school and I wanted to be a judge because you think that the judge has all this power. But honestly, nobody really talks about it. So right now, when people say, oh, those judges, it's not the judges. It's really not. The judge really, yeah, they're the ultimate decider of something, but there's a staff behind them. And the staff
Yeah,
members are the ones that are preparing yay, nay, this is the information. Those staffers really have the power. It's not really the judge. The judge is going to go based on what their team tells them to do. And so I never knew that the magistrate judge literally did not make the decision on whether someone was going to be detained or released on bond and how much bond. We actually would determine how much bond somebody was going to get on. I could literally say $1 million bond, and these
that's
are, and then
crazy.
I'd set all the conditions. You have to report once a month, urine, test, blah. I could say you must maintain work, 40-hour work week, I mean, you could set the conditions of their pretrial, of the expectation. So it's like being on probation, but before
Mhm,
you're even found guilty. Think about
mhm.
that. So the
Yeah,
government really can control you from the point of you being arrested. And it's really
yeah.
kind of, you think back, you go, shoot, this is really kind of scary. But anyway, that was something I did. And then when I moved from San Antonio to Houston, I came and worked pretrial as well in a county level. And then from there, I went and knocked on the door of the Southern District Chief, and I said, hey, I work for the Western District Chief. When he was like, well, we don't really, we don't do contract work. I said, okay, well, I'm just offering my services to you because I'm here and da da da. So anyway, he calls the Western District Chief and says, some girl just walked into my office. And the Western District Chief, tells the Southern District Chief, yeah, she's solid. She's good. She gets her work done. She's a really good help. And we contract her. And so this chief says, well, how did you do that? Because they didn't know how to, they didn't hire contractors. And
Mhm.
so anyway, he says, yeah, you go to the budget. And so I heard all the background, like, this is how you came about. And so, so the Southern District Chief calls me back and says, hey, we'd like to talk to you, come back in, and we're going to interview you. And we've talked to you came highly recommended by the, Western District Chief. And I was like, really? Because I didn't know that. And I was like, wow. So then, sure enough, I get hired on by the Southern District of Texas and worked at the pretrial there. So yeah, I mean, then I just, that's what I did early on in my life, while
Yeah.
in college and after college. And so
Well,
then, yeah.
that toughens you up, Bianca. I mean, that toughens you up. I mean, that's why I'd love to hear stories because as you were saying before we came on the air, you have to have a thick skin for
Hmm.
what you have been through. And so your life, what you just explained in a couple minutes, obviously started preparing you for that, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You never know, what exactly your life will look like. You can have all these set goals. I'm telling you, I was going to go to law school. I graduated. I was like, I'm going to law school. I'm going to be a lawyer. I want to be a judge. I wanted to be, honestly, back then, I wanted to be the first Hispanic female appointed federal judge. That was my goal. There was no
Mhm,
Hispanic female judges at the time in the federal court system. None. And I wanted to be the first Hispanic female judge. That was my goal. Obviously, God had a different plan. And
mhm,
so that obviously, yes, it did shake me. But during the time that I moved to Houston, that's obviously when I met my husband, and then my whole life changed because then I got married, and then I started to have children, and then I decided to stay home. and mind my own business and raise my children. And then I got to homeschooling. And so then I just found an outlet, and I started to do, um, just like I did in high school, right? I was involved in everything. So with my children, you name it. If they were playing soccer, I was the soccer coach, or I would sit on the board. I was on the board of the soccer league. If they were playing baseball, same thing. I was team mom before they were homeschooled and I was in public school. I was PTO. So I did every position: vice president, president, everything except treasurer. I never liked to deal with money. And so I did every other position but that. But I would fundraise. When I was in leadership, like PTO, I was probably one of the presidents that fundraised the most ever in the whole known of PTO. And so, but then when I went on to homeschool, then I started homeschooling. So it wasn't until I did
Well,
start homeschooling.
I wanna
Yeah.
ask you, Bianca, what made you decide to homeschool, actually?
So yeah, so I'm going to tell you how I went from public school to homeschool. So one of the things, it really started with my older son. And I always felt like my older son is so intelligent, and he was very intelligent because I was one of those moms. That's why I stopped working and I started raising my kids. So I was those moms that was like, I'm all in. So if I make a commitment, I'm all in. It's not halfway, it's not a
Yeah.
quarter, it's all in. So I invested so much into my children,
Mhm.
and they were important to me, right? Because I felt like this is God brought them to me. I didn't even want kids, to be
Yeah.
honest. But God gave me, two boys, and I said, okay, well, then I have to, since God has given me these boys, I have to do what I have to do to make sure that I raise them right and do good by God, right? And so in elementary, or before elementary, so before my kid got into school, I mean, I would literally sit him in front of the TV, and he would either watch Barney or he would watch the stock market or sports, right? So I'd play ESPN, the stock market, or I'd play Barney. So it was like one or the other. So, and I read to him, like I would read while I was pregnant. I would read books, and they say reading to babies while they're in your,
Yes.
still in the womb. So I was like all in. And so I felt like I prepared my child to be to excel, right? And so they get into public school, and the public school system is so broken, and
Yes.
they have like 30 something kids in a classroom. And then I knew this because one of the things between the time that I went from pretrial to before being pregnant, when I got married, I actually was offered a teaching position. So I used to teach bilingual, fourth and fifth grade bilingual. So I taught for a while. I was in the public school system, and I knew how broken it was because I was on
Yeah,
the teacher end. I knew how
right.
broken it was. So I would fight with the administration. I would fight with
Oh,
them all the time because
oh,
I fought
I'm
for the
sure they
kids.
loved you, Bianca, I'm sure they loved you.
Oh boy, did they, because I didn't follow the rules. They wanted me to get along and go along. And they would literally, the administration would tell me, don't worry about these kids in your class. They cannot read, but they were in fourth, fifth grade. They tell me, don't worry if they're like at a second grade reading, just red folder them and pass them along. And that wasn't good enough for me. I said, why are we
Oh,
doing that? Why
yeah.
are we disservicing these kids? And so I literally worked my kids, like I worked them. And I would instill this, like, I don't care what you do outside, but what you're in my classroom, you will excel. And I remember that as a classroom, instead of making fun of the kids that could not read, I would get mad at the kids that would make fun, and I'm like, would you like it if I make fun of you? Because I didn't care if they were fourth, fifth grades. I would tell them back. I'm like, well, you're not so great at this. Do you want me to laugh at you? And then they'd be like, oh my goodness. So then they became a little family in the classroom. It was their
Oh,
safe
nice.
place. And I set those
Oh,
standards in the classroom. So when they were in the classroom, we really got to a point where everyone was we were a little family. So we all helped the kids that couldn't read. So believe it
right.
or not,
Yeah,
by the somewhat of 3, 4 months later, we had these kids reading. And
yeah.
so, but again, they didn't want me to do that because it was easier than I would mess up the scores, because now this kid could read, and then they were going to have to take that standardized test, and it would mess up the scores of the exemplary status of the school. So I knew how broken the school was from a teacher end.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
go in, and my kid goes into kinder, and he is just full of life, and he's happy kid, and they're kindergartners, for crying out loud. And I remember one day, there was a book fair, and so my kid was like, my son was like, I want to go, you're better coming to the book fair. So I remember going to the book fair. We bought all these books, and the teacher didn't know that I was in the hallway coming into the classroom. So my kid's running into the
Oh.
classroom, and he's like, Mrs. So and so, and she's like, put away those books and sit down. And I was like, so
Oh.
I come in and I walk in behind him, and she looks at me, and I was like, don't you ever talk to my child again like that, and discourage him from coming back from the book fair. I was so livid. So I didn't make best friends with the teachers right
Yeah,
from the beginning.
yeah,
And
no, you think.
so he kind of it's like they like tagged him, right? So they were like, oh, watch out for this kid. So it was like, oh, it was always, they would always like write him up for stuff. He doesn't sit down, or he talks too much, or whatever. It was always, he was never like perfect, and it messed with his self-esteem at kinder,
Of
first,
course.
second. Finally, at the second grade, I had enough. I was like, no. Mm-mm. So
Yeah.
the teachers started to tell me, I think your kid needs, he's just all over the place, and we think he's ADHD. And I said, I'm sorry, are you a psychiatrist? And they're like, well, you really should take him to a doctor and see if you can get him on medicine. And this seemed to, I didn't know this at the time, but this seemed to be a really big thing in the schools. They really promote and advocate for your kid to be on pills. And
Yeah.
so I said, what? So literally, because we had psychological services through my husband's law enforcement agency, I had a really big issue with that. And I said, is there really something wrong with my kid? And so I took him to psychological services, and I had him tested, and they said, your child is like almost at, not a genius, but almost a genius. His IQ is super high. And they said, there's nothing wrong with him. And so sure
Yeah.
enough, that was where it all started, is me fighting back for my kid. And so the teachers were very upset. We had to have a meeting. The psychologist had to come in and tell the teachers, this child doesn't need any medication.
It's
And
insane.
I really think you guys should stop. So my kid gets from second to third grade. So now third grade, the teachers now tell me the same thing. Oh, I said, listen, he's already been tested. Not going to happen. I'm not putting my kid on drugs. So then they sit there and they go, oh, the teacher literally tells me, I think you should get a second opinion.
Oh my gosh.
I said,
That's crazy.
I think you should get another job. You're not a psychologist. You're a teacher. You're here to teach the kids. And I've taught. I know what it's like to be in a classroom. And if I could teach kids, underprivileged kids that were in gangs, and that I had rival gang they're fourth, fifth graders, and they're in gangs. But if I had rival little gang people in my room, and I got them to be a family inside my room, and outside I was like, I can't help you outside, but I can, what you're gonna respect this classroom. So I know what I can do as a teacher. I think you need another job. So that's where it began. And so I felt like they just kept picking on him. So we finally get to junior high, and then it's like something happens, and they automatically blame my child, and my child was not responsible for it, but they blamed him for it. And my husband had always told my kid, whatever happens, if you get drug into the principal's office, do not ever speak to them. You tell them, call my parent or my attorney. Oh, they were livid, because they pulled him into the office, and they said, they blamed him for something. He said, I can't talk to you. You have to call my parent or my attorney. So they call us up. My husband goes up there, and they're blaming my kid for something. My husband says, okay, well, you have cameras up. I need you to pull in surveillance. Oh, we can't really do that. Oh, well, no, then what's the point of having the cameras? I'm law enforcement. Go pull the cameras and prove to me that my kid did that. Well, they did, and it wasn't my kid. And they refused to apologize. At that point, I said, it's time, we got to pull him out. That's what got me to pull him out. And when I finally did that and started homeschooling, and I found a really good homeschooling program, because I already have been talking to parents, and stuff. don't understand how many mothers wish they could do and have the same,
Yeah.
option, or to
Yeah.
do that with their
Right.
kids. How many mothers came to me and said, Bianca, God, we wish we could do that. We can't, we work, we don't have that, we can't do this, and then, not to mention, because of everything that my kid had gone through, literally the amount of children that are medicated in school from an
Yeah.
early age of first grade.
Nuts.
I was told literally that about 90, listen to an elementary, 80 to 90% of the children in the school were medicated.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
terrible. So
And the parent,
Tricia,
and
you want
I would tell the
and
moms, do you not fight for your kid? You're the only advocate for your kid. So you're just
yes.
believing the teachers and putting your kid on a medication because they tell you that your kid doesn't sit down and listen.
Right. Yeah,
And
You're bored. You're not. I mean, I think ha- it's it's so against the true nature of a child to sit there and
yes,
put them at such a young age and make them sit, and then make them. Everybody's supposed to take the core. You don't explore the child that comes in with a gift. You squash it.
exactly.
You
You squash
squash
it and you mess up their self-esteem, that they now believe something's wrong with
wrong
them,
with them.
because all you do is red mark everything that they do. You give them no encouragement. You don't give them hope. You don't tell them that they're better than what they already have to live in a crazy world out there.
Yeah,
And they come to school and you give them nothing more than just red marks, and send them to the office, and you tell them they can't do this and they're not good at that. Well, what do you expect the kids to think, right? So I started homeschooling, and then that's really how I got into homeschooling. It was really tough. Believe me, it was really tough, because in homeschooling, the partnership that I found with the homeschooling is, by the seventh grade in homeschooling, these kids that have been already homeschooled, right? They were already, like, from, I don't know, third grade, fourth grade. They already have been homeschooling these kids. So by the seventh grade, these kids were writing in an MLA APA format. Their English
Wow.
teacher required them. So my kid was not exposed to any of that. I mean, that's stuff that you learn in college, maybe high school. I'm
yeah,
sorry, high school. But in junior high, I mean, I'm sorry, junior year, senior year, right? You start learning that. But they require it at seventh and eighth grade. And I was
mhm,
like, what in the world? And it was a really big transition for my child. But in ninth grade, I remember he's like, I can't do this anymore. Send me back to public school. And I said, are you sure? He's like, send me back to public school. And I said, against all my belief system, but if you want to go back to public school, I'll send you back to public school. So I sent him back to ninth grade. He didn't last 6 weeks. He said,
Oh.
I'm learning nothing. And
Mhm.
I said, okay, what does that mean? He says, Mom, they turn on a transparency. They just make us write notes. Then they make us take a test, and the test has nothing to do with what even the notes had. I said, do you have any books? No, we don't. They didn't issue any books at the time. They weren't issuing books anymore. I'm like, well, where are you supposed to read stuff? I don't know. They issue like some iPad at the time, and you just had to like open the iPad or whatever. And they pretty much told them that was the book.
Yeah.
And so we called our homeschooling system back, and they were like, bring him back. He's going to be behind 6 weeks. And 6 weeks in homeschool is, you're behind like a year, right? Because they move fast. And anyway, we made it happen. And so then my second child, once he was done with elementary, we put him in homeschooling as well. So I homeschooled.
So I
So
wanna ask
during,
you a question.
Mhm,
Yeah, I wanna ask you the bigger picture, because you have such strong thoughts about things, and so you're passionate about stuff, and I love it. You know, in general, you know this better than anybody, we've been lied to about so much,
mhm,
from the medical industries to the educational systems to everything, and I know they're having to decide what avenues they're going to dive into first to fix one step at a time.
mhm,
But the education system all the way up to universities, that's gonna take some time
mhm,
to change things.
mhm,
Don't you think? I mean, because those university professors, a lot of them think that they know what is right, and that we if you support Trump or anything like that, you don't know what you're talking about. It's going to be
Mhm.
tough, don't you think?
Very tough, very tough, because you're talking about a system that has been indoctrinating these kids for decades, probably since the 60s. And so you have to now reverse, everything that's been done in what, 40, 50 years. So
Yeah.
it's gonna, you got to steer that ship around. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, but we do have a lot of work to do, and it can be done, and it's going to take bold, courageous people. And in the
Yeah.
education system, I've had these conversations with teachers, and they're like, well, the union is stronger than us. The union is the one that's really, it's the union that's determining a lot of these things. And we don't believe in this. I have a lot of teachers that told me, I don't believe in this. I don't believe in this. I don't believe in this. I'm like, why don't you speak up? They're like, because this is my job. Like, where else am I going to go?
Yeah.
And so teachers it's really sad. And so I started to advocate for teachers and saying, let teachers be teachers. Let them teach what they believe they can teach in the classroom, not what you
Right.
want them to teach. Because what you
Yeah.
want them to teach is a standardized system that isn't it's not meant for everybody. It could work
Right.
on maybe 5 kids, but doesn't work on 30 kids. So you're
Yes.
you're you're really, and then you determine what books can be used, right? So it's the system is so corrupted. It's so
It
corrupted.
is.
We're not
It is.
teaching kids, and we're not producing good civic citizens. We're not producing them. Well,
Right.
we haven't been producing them for a long time. And so the homeschooling industry, especially after COVID, boomed.
Yeah, it did.
Boomed because parents woke up to what was really going on in the public school systems. And so during public school, that's when, I'm sorry, during homeschooling, that's really when, Trump came down the elevator. And so I've been just focusing on my kids, being involved in everything they were involved in, and then obviously making transition into homeschooling. And then that's when I got politically involved. I was like one of those moms that had to supplement income because I chose to stay home with my kids and then
Mhm.
homeschool. So you had to find other ways to supplement income. And so I felt like I was working harder and not getting anywhere. And then I was like, I opened up a business and I was overtaxed and overregulated. And I didn't truly understand, right? Because I was born, raised Democrat. I was born, raised Democrat.
Oh,
Mhm.
Yes.
really?
Yes, I was. And so I really didn't understand this until you are that you're put into this and you're like, wait a minute, where's my money? Like, wait, what? You're taking how much of my money? Like, I worked hard for this. And I felt like we were going backwards, not forwards. And so there was a lot of things that opened my eyes up. Law enforcement, there were during Obama, there was law enforcement was getting literally wiped out like everywhere. They were being shot, killed, and nobody cared about law enforcement. It was like, oh, the law enforcement people are wrong. They're bad people. So there was a fight against the law enforcement. There was a fight against capitalism. There was a fight against the education, and then
Mhm.
our veterans. So my husband's veteran and my brothers are veterans. And so my little brother is 100% disabled veteran. He was probably not just be from the business, from the law enforcement, but then now we had veteran issues. And then we had senior issues. So my mom was a senior, fixed income. So I really was able to now see, right? I like a veil
Mhm.
lifted, and I was able to now see that there was corruption along the whole way. Like our seniors were having a problem. They weren't getting medical attention like they should. Veterans were not being taken care of. You had Hillary Clinton running around saying there was nothing wrong with the veterans department. And I knew different because of my personal story with my brother. And so I was like, I had to start speaking out. That's what got me into the political scene. Is 2016 I started to speak out because of all of everything now I had witnessed: homeschooling, public school, veterans things,
Yep.
law enforcement, seniors. You could just keep going on and on. The attack on capitalism. I had friends from Venezuela that were like, communism is here. And I was like, this is the United States. Ain't no communism here. They're like, Bianca, it's not at your door knocking, it's inside your house now. I was like, no. But until I actually saw it and Trump came down the escalators, And I just remember my husband was like, "That's our guy," and I'm like, "You got this? A joke? Come on!" I was like, "No way!" I was like, "Let's go for Marco," and he's like, "No, that's our guy," and I'm like, okay. So that's the reason why that I got involved in speaking out, became politically involved. And then it scared my kids. My kids were like, they're gonna come and kill us because BLM, Antifa, all that rise of the, true communist Marxists, they find those brown shirt people to come and they train them, breed them, train them, and then they send them out to terrorize, right? If you're not
Right.
in line with them. The thing was that I think that the left didn't count on Hispanics rising up. They attacked the white people, but they didn't know what to do with us
Mhm.
because we were brown and we didn't fit the mold. And then I was not a male, I was a female. So, and
Yeah.
early on in 2016, that's why I was one of the co-founders of Latinos for Trump in 2016. I found voices on Facebook that we started messaging each other. We were all in our little silos speaking out, and we unified and became Latinos for Trump. And man, they came after us.
Oh
Boy, did they
my
come after
goodness.
us. So we went through that whole thing, but we got Trump elected. As soon as Trump was elected, about a week later, I get a call, and I thought it was a Republican woman because they would promote me. The Republican women promoted me like crazy, and they said, "Oh, something about you. They want to call you. Can we give your number?" I didn't realize I was going to get called about a job. I thought I was going to get called about a speaking engagement. So I get this call, and they're like, "Oh yeah, your number's been given to us, and do you have a resume?" And I'm like, "A resume?" I was like, "You need my resume for me to go speak?" And they're like, "Speak?" And they're like, "No, we're not calling you about speaking." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm sorry. What are you calling me about?" They're like, "We're calling you about a job." And I said, "A job?" Now, remember, Trump had promised jobs when he was
Uh-huh.
campaigning in 2016.
Yeah.
So I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Job? Wait a minute, what job?" So they're like, "Yeah, well, we're calling from the Republican Party of Texas and we're looking for a Hispanic engagement director." And I was like, "What? What?" So I'm like, well, I don't have a resume because I'm a stay-at-home mom and I've been staying at home for 10 years, but I am educated. And that's where that's where everything launched. So within a week, they vetted me, I had come highly recommended. So they vetted me. I was at the moment I was helping my really dear friend get elected as a mayor, right? And so they called him up and he was like, "I don't want to see her leave, but she has a higher calling." That's what got me and launched me. So literally because of my obedience, I had already started a spiritual walk with the Lord. And so because of my obedience, when the Lord said, "You're going to go help Trump," when the Lord told me things, and I did all those things, the door wide opened for the state of Texas. And the Lord literally handed me the whole state of Texas. I went from a stay at home mom of 10 years, and He handed me the whole state of Texas. That opened the door. And then that is when the Lord said, "You will hold pastors accountable." I was a Catholic at the time. I ran to my priest. My priest said, "I can't help you. I don't even know we don't get involved in politics." I said, but God said this. And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay." So, but the Lord knew what He was doing. He brought forth a pastor. The pastor listened to my story. The pastor was like, "Let me get this straight. You want us to go help you advocate for Trump?" I said, "No, I don't want you to help me advocate for Trump. I want you to go pray about it. You're the pastor. I'm a nobody. I'm just a mom. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm a stay-at-home mom that works for the Republican Party now. God told me this is what I need to do, and so you go pray about it." Almost a month later, pastor calls me back. He says, "The Lord says I have to help you." And that opened up the door to the Hispanic evangelical Hispanic evangelical like platform. Found myself vetted for 6 months from the Hispanic evangelicals. Then they knew that, I guess they prayed, they found out that God sent me. And so then you found me on the pulpits preaching, telling the Hispanic illegals that they were not going to get to the promised land because they broke the law, and they were crying. And I was like, "What is happening?" And so, and then it spiraled out of control. And then I wasn't a Catholic anymore. Then I was getting baptized in like the bay, and so I was like baptized. The pastors were like, "Oh, sister, you've been baptized." I was like, "What is going on?" The move of God in my life during that time was an acceleration that I had never seen before. God used the political atmosphere to elevate me to be a voice for the voiceless. And so I
Yeah.
didn't comprehend it at the time, but here I was, and I was like, what is going on? Now, the tremendous amount of adversary that came after me from the political arena itself, they came after me like no business. And so I went through so much, so much. People trying to knock me out, take me out, blacklist me. I mean, you name it, this political system was vicious.
Did they go
And
after your family?
I'm sorry,
Did they go after your family or just you?
it was me. So this was the very interesting part. Most people didn't know I was married in the political system. So they didn't know I had children, and the Lord protected my family. Most people did not know I was married, and they didn't know because my family didn't travel with me. They didn't go anywhere with me. I never brought them into this to the, most politicians, they bring their family and everybody.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
never, I was always with friends or by myself. And so
Mhm.
most people didn't know I was married. So no, they didn't. We were very protected. And so, yeah, so, but that really was like, I mean, that really is how the Lord used the political
Mhm.
system to get me into the church. And then the church really, that launched a whole other faith-based engagement for me, to be really coming into the Lord even more. So the Lord really has been behind everything that I do. And through all of the last, even 2020, when Nancy Pelosi came after me with the Benny Johnson and Nancy Pelosi came after me with a J6. I wasn't even there, and they still came after me. I got subpoenaed. I mean,
Wow.
the FBI coming after me, the FEC. I was the rumors that I had stolen I mean, all, you name it, they blamed me for it. I had to go through audits. I had to go. I mean, I was like, all of this because I turned out the Hispanic vote, because I
Yes.
win and held people accountable to voting righteously. This, I have to endure all of this. Now, it was really tough to go through, but the Lord obviously still protected me. And in the end, I never did anything wrong other
Right.
than preach truth, tell the truth, and lead my people to righteousness. Because
Right.
my job when I went into the Hispanic evangelical churches, my job was never to tell them you're Republican. My job was to
Right.
tell them I'm Republican because of this, and I
Yes.
vote because of this. My job
Right.
is to educate you. So I'm going to educate you. These are the values here, these are the values here. I just want you to be educated and make a good decision, and I never want anybody to take advantage of you or tell you that you're too stupid enough to make a decision of your own.
Yeah.
When you empower people with
Right.
knowledge, and you
Truth.
empower people and say, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm giving you the knowledge. Don't take my word
Right.
for it. Go research it. Now you research it. They're like, oh my God, what have we done? I mean, for
Yeah.
the Hispanic church itself, the Hispanic evangelicals, to have that hard talk and be educated and be like, what have we done? We had no clue, because no Republican had ever gone and knocked on their door and offered any kind of education. So
But
they didn't know
yeah.
what they were voting for. And that
Right.
really is what changed. Oops. That really is what changed the whole Hispanic. That's what flipped the RGV into blue of 100 years to red, because of the advocacy that I did, very early on from 2017 all the way to 2020. I that just in that region alone, I was influencing 582 pastors. Now, by this
Yeah.
time, I was now in North Carolina, Colorado, California, New Mexico. I had pastors all over the place
Yeah.
that
You
were
were
relying
dangerous,
on
lady.
me. Yeah, were relying on me for knowledge. And so, Arizona, I mean, you name it. I then finding sisters that were moving pastors themselves in their states, and aligning together and saying, how do we do how do we do what God wants us to do? And that really has been my journey. It's always God at the forefront. And so when they tried to
Absolutely.
take Latinos for Trump down, what they didn't know is it's not about Trump. It's about God. God
Yeah.
chose him. God used him. Our job was not to love him, judge him on his personal life. Our job was to say, well, this is the man that God has chosen because he's strong, bold, courageous, and he doesn't back down. And therefore, he's going to be used for such a time. So you don't need to love him. You just
Right.
need to help him so he can help us back. And so,
Yeah.
so that was really the whole takeaway from everything. But yeah, I mean, it's been my
Yeah.
whole journey. And so then in 2020, when he didn't return, I founded Latinos for America First. And that's really how, my team and I, we've been operating under Latinos for America First. So we have an organization that focuses on policy, education, and then we have the PAC that helps federal candidates when it's time for elections, and so that's how we operate. But in the end, like the Lord really, ministry is my calling. It's always at the forefront. And almost every single leader that I have in Latinos for America First, and even in Latinos for Trump, are all God and fearless God people. They're
Yes.
godly people.
Yes.
They're prayer warriors, and
Mhm.
they're very convicted to always do what's right, for people,
Right.
for God, representing God. And so I am just really happy that I can lead, this organization and do the best that I can. Not a
Right.
perfect person, and none of us are perfect, but we really strive to excellence, and
Yeah.
that's what we do. And so right
Yeah.
now, it's interesting because the Lord kind of has me in the media thing. It's a media, like the seven mountains. How do you influence, right? I've been in the faith mountain because I was influencing moving mountains, right? Then the governmental, obviously the I've already been in the education. I understand the education system and I understand how it's broken. And then the mountain of, the government mountain. Obviously, I have knowledge in that as well, working in federal government, right? In my degrees, and how they align. And then now it's like I'm in the media mountain. I have White House press credentials. I go to the Capitol. They
That's
asked me to go do media row at Capitol and help our elected officials get their message out. And so I'm like, this is interesting, God. I wasn't expecting
yeah.
this media mountain now. And so that's kind of where God has me now, but he hasn't taken
Yeah.
away my responsibilities elsewhere.
Yeah, what's fascinating is, I mean, you would be the scariest person for a Democrat. I mean my gosh, ha bringing together the Hispanic community in faith, I mean, come on now. And,
Mhm.
we talk about the bigger bubble that all of this is very spiritual, and, I've talked to people in the truth community who are in different bubbles of the truth
Mhm.
community, and
Mhm.
almost all of them have the commonality of increased spirituality in their lives and the lives of the people around them, and because this is a spiritual war that we're
Mhm.
in right
Yeah.
now. um so that I didn't even think about the Hispanic community, but that how cool is that? I mean, and it's such a God, this whole thing has been such a God movement.
It really has. And I will tell you, the Republicans are really good about, and I get it. I get the big picture. Oh, we are a party of everybody under one tent. We don't believe in, the segregation of white, black, Hispanics. It's everybody. And I'm like, unfortunately, guys, you're going to lose because the Democrats already divided us. I mean,
Yeah.
they've told you that you have what, 88 genders or whatever crazy thing. I mean, they divide you by categories, subcategories, and
Yes.
subcategories. So unless
Right.
you are playing on their field, you're going to lose.
Right.
Because I get the unity thing. I get it. It's very important. But if I'm sorry, you cannot send a black person into the Hispanic evangelical community and think that they're relatable, because in our
Mhm.
mind, even
Mhm.
though we speak and we all can agree on things, you're still not relatable. There's certain things in the culture that you're not going to connect. So you
Right.
have to send people that connect, that can
Yeah.
speak the language, that can understand the culture. It's not about, oh, well, we believe in brown and we believe in black and we believe in white and we believe in yellow and green and purple. It's not about that. It's about, you've
Mhm.
got, when the Constitution says it's a true representation, So why in the world would you elect an Asian in a, I don't know, predominantly 90% Hispanic district
Mhm.
to represent
Right.
you
Mhm.
when you don't even
Yes.
understand your culture and your community? How
Right.
are you going to truly represent your community if it's not a person that reflects the community? It doesn't mean that we are like promoting the brown. I'm like, so that's one of the hardest things that I have to fight with the Republican Party. I'm like, you guys, they're like, oh, well, we got rid of the DEI. I get that. Don't hire me based on the color of my skin. But what you're
Mhm.
telling me now is that you don't believe that the people in the color of my skin are educated and experienced enough to get the job.
Mhm.
Is
Right.
that what you're telling me? Are you now telling me that Black, Asians, Hispanics, we don't have the intelligence or the experience to do the job? Because let me
Right.
tell you something. I found out when I was in Miami working with the Cubans that the person who designed the skyscraper of New York was a Cuban.
Mhm.
So you're going to tell me that the engineer and architect that designed the design, and not does he just design the skyscraper of New York, the landscape, he actually built the buildings because he was an
Yeah.
architect. So you're
Yeah.
going to tell me that my people are not educated and they're not experienced enough to have a seat at the table.
Right. Yeah, of
So
course not.
I don't need you to hire us based on the color of our skin. But let me tell you something. We have the knowledge, the wisdom, the courage, the boldness, and you are missing out on opportunities to fight the left back because right now we are losing America because the left is using the mass deportation issue to scare all of our community. And I keep telling the
Yeah.
Republican Party, we don't have a mass deportation problem, people. We have a messaging problem. You have
Yeah.
failed. This administration has failed in having surrogates across the country to be able to fight back with a voice because 77 million of us in this country voted for mass deportations. Trump told us he was going to deport. We voted for
Right.
it.
Yeah.
50% of the Hispanics voted for this. So don't
Yeah.
tell me that we have a mass deportation problem, people. You
Right.
have a
Yeah.
messaging problem and you don't have the
Yeah.
surrogates and you have the community is voiceless right now. That is
Yeah.
my biggest frustration going into the midterms right now. My
Yeah.
biggest frustration.
That's because, in the world that you see, it's the mainstream still media that still kind of has somewhat of a stranglehold on what the narrative is. But I have to ask something back to your family. It was so intriguing. You said that your family were Democrats. What do they think of you and all of this that you are
Well,
doing?
most of them are now, they love Trump.
Oh,
Um, they love Trump, and I'll tell you why. They love him because he is abrasive, and they love him because they love that no matter how bad the system comes after them, he gets right back up and he fights back. They love a
yeah.
fighter. The Hispanic community is drawn to fighters. It's why we love MMA, WWE. It's why we love boxing because we love the fighter in this. We love that spirit. We love it. 34, probably 35, 37% of our military is Hispanic.
Mhm.
70% of our border patrol agents are Hispanic. Our people are at the front line fighting for this country.
Mhm.
So don't tell
Mhm.
me that we don't know how to fight. We recognize a fighter. That's what draws us to Trump. So the bigger reason that they really really love Trump is because they then were able when he was in office from 2016 to 2020 and the cost. So we love to barbecue and we love brisket, right? We love brisket. And
Texas
so
brisket. Mhm.
we love brisket. So the one thing about Hispanics is they saw that brisket had gone from $150 to $70. They found that their bank account had more money while Trump was in office than when Obama was in office. When Joe Biden went into office, they were like, "What in the world just happened?" they understand economics. They understand when their money's
Mhm.
taken away and they don't have enough money and they're having to really struggle to pay bills. That's what they understand. They understand economics. They understand hard work. They understand when there is no work, right? Because now you got to have 2, 3 jobs while a Democrat's in office because you can't afford the cost of living because they overtax and overregulate everything. Republicans are, smarter about that. And so, because
Yeah,
we believe in capitalism, right? And so that's what where I think the Hispanics really understand. They understand the economy.
absolutely.
They understand,
Yes.
and then when you're fighting and you give them the religious liberties, then that's big for our community when you don't attack our faith.
Yeah.
So
You,
and
you know,
and then every Hispanic family wants their children to be have a good education.
right. You know what's so fascinating is that, though we know there's these bigger atrocities that organizations like America's Future is trying to combat, like the trafficking and things like that,
Hmm.
but people have been so uh, purposefully so deprived of finances and overtaxed, overregulated, so that's all they can focus on. Because it's been, and that's been purposeful
Hmm.
in people's lives, so that they don't focus on all the other lies and everything and all the other devastating things. So it's going to be interesting, Bianca, to see how this continues to, how this part is going to be played out, because I think there's going to be better finances for people, hopefully, in the future, with less taxes and even more less and less taxes, so that
Hmm.
that way people don't have that stranglehold,
Hmm.
and that they can maybe look at some of these other things that are causing distress in people's lives, these other lies. What do you
Hmm.
think about that?
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, I work for these two dear friends of mine that own. They're the founders and own CEOs of Latino Wall Street. And Latino Wall Street is the probably the only Hispanic entity or LLC out there, corporation, that what they do is advocacy and educate the Hispanics in Spanish. That they It's all Spanish speaking. So what they do is they train, teach Hispanics on how to prosper, how to invest their money in the stock market, and how to build more wealth. Okay. And so our Hispanic community isn't taught that. They're not taught. We're so used to putting our money away under the mattress, so to speak, right? Not really, but so to speak, our grandparents, my grandmother used to put her money under the mattress. She
Mhm.
didn't trust the banks. But you put your money in the bank and you don't really grow, right? And so Latino Wall Street right now is really championing in training, teaching, and advocating to train and educate more Hispanics on how to invest their money to become millionaires, right? And live a true American dream. And so we have to break that cycle of a Hispanic that
Yeah,
says, okay, well, I just earn my money and I'm okay, I'm complacent. No, you want to
right.
have even more, right? Because this country affords you more. And
Yes.
so I think that the entity like Latino Wall Street right now, in which I work for, is really championing what you're saying in the economics and training and teaching people how to grow in wealth, right? And so that's something that I think, as we change the mindset of the Hispanics, and we see more Hispanics becoming, even more wealthier, right? They're going to really appreciate this country even more because it has afforded them that. And they've learned now that they can take their hard earned money and even take a piece of it and invest it little by little. Trump just
Hmm.
started the Trump accounts, where
Yep.
if you have children, the corporations are matching the money, the government's going to match your money. This is a no brainer. And we need
Yeah.
to be talking about this more to our Hispanic families, going, you have the opportunity to put money away for your child. Do you have to have a
Hmm.
$1,000? If you have it, great. If you don't, you don't. But hey, put away money open up this Trump account, because your kid in the long run, in 18 years, 20 years, is now not going to be, you're going to now open up this avenue and opportunity for your kid to say, I'm going to take that money and either either get open up a business, or I'm going to take that money and go to school. So this is what I
Exactly.
love, is it's not a regular one of those 527s or whatever that you put and it's only used for school. This is
Right.
if you want to start up a company, right? You're
Hmm.
going to have money saved that your parents put away from you, that was matched by the government and matched
Right.
by companies. and be able to build that wealth and
Yes.
come out of school and say, well, you know what, I really at graduation I really don't want to go to college, but now I have a little, $20,000, $30,000 that I can now
Yes.
invest, and I can go
Most
start my
definitely.
little business, right? And then grow from
Exactly.
there. And so this is what we're doing right now, and Trump is doing right now, is he's not doing short term. He's doing long term. How do we get this country to stop relying on the government? So you got to think long term, right?
Right.
And you got to think about the kids. So you asked me earlier, how is it that we're going to turn around the education corrupt system? This is the way we do it. This is the way we do
Mhm.
it. We now pretty much have dismantled the Department of Education, right? It's down to a shell. So we're
Right.
returning education back to the states and saying, hey, you do what you want with your education, right? Based on what your state,
Mhm.
what's good for your state. There's more parental rights for homeschoolers.
Mhm.
In Texas, this is in Texas. So if anybody listens in Texas, what they don't tell you, and the public school is never going to tell you this, but I found this out. So they don't want to tell you because then you take money away from them that the state gives them, right? But as a homeschooler, you have the option to be homeschooled, and all you have to do is take 2 courses in a public school that allows you now to be UIL. You can actually go play football, be in the band, play a sport in public school. And all you have to do
Mhm.
is take 2 classes. That's it.
Mhm.
Well, they don't get the full payment because you're not a full-time student. And
Mhm.
it exempts you from any standardized testing or any testing at all. So you just really
Excellent.
pick your 2 subjects, and then your
Mhm.
child can go to that. And I took advantage of that.
Yeah.
Oh, you should have seen them. They fought me tooth and nail on that. You
Oh,
can't
I'm
do that.
sure.
We don't do that. Da da da. And I said, go ask the state, Texas Education Agency. Go ask them. It's in there. It's in writing. Here is the clause. You have to allow my child to come here. So my child took math and science, but see, and that's something I didn't say earlier. So I was homeschooling, but I still utilized the public school, and they couldn't pick on him anymore because he was just there for 2 classes, and then he played
Yeah.
sports. And
Yeah.
so they couldn't do anything to him. And that I as a parent had the power. I had the power.
Exactly.
I had
Yeah.
full power, and they had no control of my kid anymore. They never messed with him. He
Which
was
they
just,
hate, I'm
which they
sure.
hate. And they all they did was, okay, well, he's a homeschool kid, and but they treated him because they knew, they were like, yeah, you don't want to mess with her.
Yeah, you don't wanna mess
She'll
with her, it's
find,
his mother.
yeah, she'll find
Yeah.
some statute, some
Yeah.
guideline or
Yeah,
regulatory. She'll get an attorney.
exactly.
I mean, she's,
It's so
yeah, just
true.
leave her alone, let her
Yeah.
be, whatever. And so
Yeah.
that's something that the homeschooling community doesn't really know. They don't know
Yeah.
they can take advantage of that. And so you
Yeah.
can in the state of Texas. So again,
Yeah.
there is so many options for parents out
Yeah.
there
There
nowadays
are.
that
Yeah.
are more
Yeah.
than what we had, where we felt that we had before, that you were
Yes.
forced to, this is it. You send your kid to
Yeah.
public school and
We're
that's all you have.
moving.
So
That
Tricia.
there are so many options, but you have to research. You have
Yeah.
to look for this information.
that is
Right.
a really good piece of information, and I think that kind of helps with the, all right, if you're completely homeschooled and you're missing that social piece of it. This is a
Correct.
beautiful way
Correct.
to, okay, go take your 2 classes, then you have full access to go and play sports and still have that exposure with the other
Or
kids.
or theater or band.
Yeah,
Because
good.
it's
Yeah.
UIL. It's the whole UIL thing, competition, right? So
Right.
in the
Yeah.
homeschool, yeah. So in the homeschool, you're limited. It's 12 kids in a classroom, 10 kids in a classroom. Sometimes, and so you have that. But if you do take advantage of this opportunity where you can send your kid, and so what you do is, you find those classes that they're not going to be as strong in the homeschool, right? What you're not strong, because ultimately you can find the partnership of homeschooling, but you're still, as a parent, you're still the principal and you're the teacher responsible at home, so you still have to do all the busy work. So I'm not my subjects, my strengths are not science and math. So what I did is I did science and math. I did the STEM at the public school, and then that way he could still play sports. And then he did all his English, and all of his history, and then I even chose other electives in homeschooling. So
Mhm.
we did the other classes at homeschool, and it was a great balance for my child. He loved it.
Yeah,
He loved
yeah,
it. Now, it
yeah,
was
I
not
think
great for me because I had to play. I was a school bus, so I'd have to take him to class at the homeschool.
yeah,
Then it was like, oh boy, he has to be over here because his class is over here. And so the way, it's either
yeah,
you chose the morning shift at the public school or the afternoon shift. So I was school bus. And
yeah, you
so
are a school bus, exactly.
I could not work at all. Like, this is when I couldn't
Yeah,
work. I just was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But you know what? As a mom and as a parent, it was, my husband first fought me at it. He's like, "Oh, I don't know." But now we look back and we say it was one of the best decisions we made. We made a
yeah,
lot of sacrifices to homeschool our kids. We made a lot of sacrifices. But now we look back and we look at the quality of the sons we have raised.
mhm,
And and the best thing about homeschooling is that all of the books in homeschooling mention God, all of them,
oh, excellent,
whether they're
wow,
English, whether they're all the curriculum that was used in the homeschooling was all faith driven. So
yeah,
if you opened up a science book, a history book, it didn't matter. There was always reference to God in those books. So
Wow.
yeah,
so my kids were getting a biblical view of education, as well
yeah,
as a little bit of the public school still for their social
yeah,
skills and
Yeah.
right,
UIL. So my kids had the best of a lot of worlds, but again, the sacrifice was on me. I
yeah,
literally every day was going, I was in a car all day.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah,
literally, I can't do anything. I am strung to these children and doing everything. But now my kids are, I mean, I get the best. When people meet my children, they're like, we love your kids. I mean, off the bat, they're respectful. They are hard
mhm,
workers. They didn't rely on mom or dad to get them anything. They have worked for everything they have. My son is accelerating in his career. My other son is starting his career. And so we really have truly, I am very proud, very proud
yes,
of raising my sons and the sacrifices I made for them to
yeah,
be where they're at right now with God at the forefront. I
right,
feel like, God, I did the best that I can. I did
right,
what I needed to do. And it's really sad that there is a lot of moms that don't have that privilege or benefit of doing what I did. But if a mom is out there and doesn't believe they have choices or options, I'm here to tell you, you can make it work. You really can. You just have to make some sacrifices, but in the long run, it's so well worth it for the product you're putting out, right? Because now I know that I have produced good fruit of civic citizens that are productive, that know how to give back. They're respectful, they're good kids, and they're grounded, and
yeah,
they have a great foundation.
You
And
knew where I
so
was gonna go. You knew where I
yeah.
was gonna go. Because I was gonna ask how old your boys were now, and then seeing that kind of mom that you are, like, grounded and, but it's not just that, it's, like, confident and, like,
Thank you.
um, fierce.
Thank you.
You're fierce.
Thank
And
you.
like, how do you see that? So you've already mentioned that they're good citizens. I was just wondering if you were, there's something that you see or that they've done or repeated something you may have told them, and you kinda have that proud mom, uh,
Moments.
moment.
Well, I'll answer the first question. So my oldest is 25 and my youngest is 21. So they're adults, right? Full blown adults. And so honestly, I think that there's really not a day, honestly, that I don't see my children, whether it's something they say or they do in their actions, that I'm not a proud parent. And I say that on behalf of my husband and I. We really are proud parents. we see the fruit of what we have poured into our two boys. They are, and I'm not just saying this because I'm their mother, but I truly, I get the feedback from people who meet my sons.
Oh,
I get so many compliments about them and their character, and even young girls. I mean, even young girls are like, they love to come. They're like, oh my God. They tell my son, we love your mom. And they tell me, they're like, oh, you're a political mama. And so they tell me all the time, they're like, oh my God, your son is so awesome, or he's great, or he did this, and he's so, he's so respectful, and he's this. So I hear it from older people to younger people that they're very well respected in their community. And that people literally look to them for advice. And so I think there's, I mean, I'm always gonna be a proud mom.
Yeah,
And so very protective of them, but yet I'm not like this hovering, telling them what to do. I really think that it is important for them to make their own decisions. And sometimes they've made some bad decisions where they had to, fall and learn. And they're like, why didn't you warn me? And I said, because you had to learn. You have to learn. You have
right.
to also learn. Mom and dad can't make all the decisions for you. Now, can you come
Yeah,
to us and say, what do y'all think? I'm gonna make this decision and da 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 da. We'll tell them, okay, well, what are your pros and cons? We put it back on them. Draw out your pros and cons on this before you make a decision. They're like, okay. So then they'll go do their pros and cons, and we'll sit in it, and they're like, okay, let me look at it, and we discuss it. Okay, well, this is what I feel. This is what I think. This is my opinion, but there are your pros and cons. Now go pray about it and figure out what you want to decide. And they
y-
made good decisions. Not all
yeah,
not all the time, obviously, but most of the time
right.
they do. So yeah,
You
so
know,
I'm
I
a
I
proud mama no matter what.
I think that there's the the people like your sons around the world, they're going to be these next lighthouses,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of these young leaders around
Mm-hmm.
the world who, and it's going to be a fierce batch of young people,
Mm-hmm.
because they went through that pandemic and all those things, and it's going to be a fierce generation, um,
And
and so
I will tell you real quick that one of the things that we instill in our sons is that they be leaders, that
yeah,
they critically think for themselves and make decisions for themselves, and not just
right,
follow the crowd to follow the crowd.
yeah. So that's going to be key. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. That's the shattering of that psyop that we just have
Mm-hmm.
to listen to other people we know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fantastic. So this has been so fun. You're such a firecracker. I have one
yeah.
last question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what do you think, about this year? What do you think about the big celebration this summer, the 250th celebration? I've already got a place in in DC. I'm just really excited, and I'm hoping it's just going to be a lot to celebrate. But what are your thoughts?
So I am working with the America 250, committee, as well as the White House on America 250 initiatives. And I'm very excited. I'm very excited. We've been talking about this since last year because, they kicked off the America 250 during 4th of July here in Washington,
Mhm.
D.C., when they had the military parades and everything. And they've done some other things. And right now, the vision back then was, hey, as soon as like this gets really up and running, each and every department, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Education, the Department of Agriculture. Everybody is tasked to lead in some type of 250 effort. And so, like the Department of Transportation is going to start. They've got a 50-state tour. They're going to stop in 50 states, and they've got their own initiative. And so, yeah. So I'm very excited as we are now into this full blown celebrating 250. I think the best thing that I was really shocked, I wasn't expecting this, is when Trump at the National Day of Prayer just a couple weeks ago said we are going to rededicate this country back to God. And so we're going to
Yes,
have May 17th, we're going to have the what is it, under God? And
yes. One nation under
off
God.
at the mall. Yeah, One Nation Under God at the mall. And I thought, what a huge pivotal moment for America. And so, look,
That's
I
our
have
repentance, right?
things.
Isn't that our repentance and our,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, that's very, very
absolutely.
biblical.
Absolutely. And so here's one of the things. So like you know, this whole MAGA movement and Trump movement and everything, I love Trump. I would not have been fighting for him since 2016. But here's where it gets me. If I have an opinion about something and I don't feel like he's made a good decision about something, I'll say something. And all of a sudden everybody attacks me. Oh my God, you don't love Trump, blah, 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 blah. Because I don't agree with one thing. Automatically you think I don't love Trump for anything. I don't
Mhm.
idolize Trump. I love God. I
Mhm.
respect Trump because of what he has done
Yes.
for this nation. But I'm not ever going to idolize him. And I don't have to agree with every single thing he does. I do
Right.
have reservations about some certain things. But here's where it matters to me. You can make some not so great decisions, right? But when you tell me you're going to rededicate this country back to God, that's huge
Yes.
for me. Okay. So listen, Abraham Lincoln, I remember telling General Flynn this. Um, I came under a lot of scrutiny. I don't know if y'all ever saw this, but I came under a lot of scrutiny because in 2020, the Lord had told me that I needed to give a word to Trump. And he literally highlighted these things for me. And I remember being interviewed and it made national news and they were like, Latinos for Trump president comes against Trump and says God did not allow him to go back to the White House. And I'm like, that's not exactly what I said, but you misconstrued it. That's not exactly what I said. What I said was I was giving the analogy that we spend as culture, as a faith community, as patriots, as Americans, doesn't matter, we spend a lot of time really giving so much dominion and authority to the enemy. We do it. Okay, so
Mhm.
anytime something goes wrong, oh, the enemy, oh, the
Mhm.
enemy did it, oh, they stole the
Mhm.
election because of the enemy. Does anybody ever really think about that God allowed it to happen? Because God
Mhm.
is, if we really are Christians, if we really are a Judeo-Christian country, if we really are going to preach Christianity and believe in God, then
Mhm.
why in the world do we run around with a mentality that the devil is, we give him all the credit for everything that happens in this country? Do we
Mhm.
really believe that God didn't allow it to happen? So I said, yes, the election was stolen from us. It was stolen. We know this,
Mhm.
but God allowed it
Mhm.
because there was something that Trump did that God wasn't happy with. And I remember getting all of the revelation and the confirmations of those things. And people were like, oh no, Michelle, is it Bachman? Michelle Bachman, I think okay.
Yes.
She was warning Trump to not sign that Abraham Accord. And her and some faith leaders had actually worked on an Abraham Accord initiative with certain pastors. And Jared Kushner came in behind them with a whole set of new pastors and presented something to Trump on January 28th of 2020.
Mhm.
Trump it did not do what Michelle Bachmann and everybody had already done all the legwork to do. And what did Trump do? He signed the Abraham Accords that Jared Kushner gave him. What did
Mhm.
that Abraham Accords do? It redrew and took away land from Israel. What does the Bible
Mhm.
say? You're not to touch Israel. You don't redraw Israel. You don't so much move a line in Israel. We are to
Mhm.
defend and protect Israel. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to go along with everything that the government of Israel says. We are to protect the land and protect Israel. So what does he do? He goes and he signs that. That day, Peter Navarro wrote a book. Well, he wrote a book going back and traces it that all hell broke loose on January 28, 2020 in the White House. He was
Mhm.
COVID hit
Mhm.
and all hell broke loose in the White
You know,
House. Why? Because I truly believe because he signed that Abraham Accords. He signed the
yeah.
wrong thing and he took land. God allowed Trump to lose that election. And I kept saying I was comparing him to a biblical thing. I said, I didn't say he's like the Nebuchadnezzar sent back out into the field. And I kept telling people, you know how And the whole system came on him.
Mhm.
Lawfare, jail. And I said, all I wanted to do is say, you can make this all go away, Trump. You can make this all go away. Do what Abraham Lincoln did when he was under the civil, what is it? The war, the Civil
The
War.
Civil War.
He on April in 1863, I believe. I don't know if I'm saying the right date anymore, but I think so. It was in April. Lincoln literally wrote a proclamation and went to the Lord and said, I am giving you this country back because
Mhm.
I can't do it anymore. I'm in the middle of war.
Mhm.
I'm losing all these people. This country belongs to you, and I'm literally rededicating it back to you.
Yeah.
He wrote that
And
proclamation and the Civil
yes.
War ended. That's all I
Yeah.
was trying to say. I'm like, Trump, you really don't have to go through all of this. You can literally end this. All you have to do is say the magic words. Say the
You
magic words. Say, I
well,
repent. I repent. I made a bad decision. I don't know, whatever. God, what did I do? Rededicate. Forgive me and return this country back to God. That's all he
yeah.
needed to do. And I think
And
he would have broken all of it.
I think, and that's such we're gonna find out as history
Yes.
is
Yes.
revealed,
Yes.
precisely why some of those things happened in
Huh?
those 4 years,
That's
because
right.
I think there's such different levels of what actually could be happening, and that's what excites me because we really don't know for sure why certain things happen. God's in control
That's
regardless,
right.
you know what I
That's
mean?
right.
And so whatever the situation is, it's gonna be a fascinating this time, the world with which we're living, Bianca, you know better than anybody, is gonna be studied like no other time
That's right.
because the things that we know and don't know
Yeah.
and the people who have been infiltrated, the traitors,
Yep.
the people who are the good guys who have infiltrated, the white hats. I mean, this is the most exciting time to be alive
It
because
is.
there's so
We're
much.
living it. We are living
I
it. We're
know.
we're living
I
biblical
love it.
prophecy. We're living biblical
So many.
prophecy. And I'm just
Yeah,
like, guys, that's why I'm like, change your mindset. Change your mindset. Quit giving the enemy all the power, all the
right.
credit
That's
for everything
exactly
that
right.
goes wrong. Take
Right.
that authority back and say, no,
Yes.
you know what?
Right.
Hold on. Let me go check myself and figure
Yes.
out why was this allowed? Did I do
Yeah.
something to offend my God? Right? Because
Right.
God tells us in the Bible, we are kingdom. Ask, you shall receive. Seek, and you will find. Ask
Yes.
whatever you want. I will give you the desires of your heart. And we run around
That's
here
right.
like we are victims of everything.
I know, and that's
Oh,
a that's a
I
that's a
lost this.
purposeful
Oh,
psyop too.
and I'm like,
That
we're
yes.
the Lord said we were to do greater things than
Then he.
Jesus said you're
Absolutely.
to do greater things than me. And we run around here giving the domain and the authority back to the enemy. Oh, but the enemy, the enemy did this. Oh, the enemy did this. Okay, well, the enemy might have, but guess who's still sitting on the throne? Guess who
Exactly.
died for our sins? Guess who is still the only way into the Father is through Jesus. He is still the King of Kings sitting on the throne. So don't think for one
Absolutely.
second that he doesn't allow things to happen as well. He's like, okay, people, I warned you. The other day I said something. I said, there was all the corruption and the Epstein and everything going on, right? I said, people are very upset. They're not showing up to vote. There's a lot of stuff going on in this world. And I said, people are very discouraged right now. Americans are discouraged because they haven't seen people get held accountable for COVID, stolen elections, Epstein. Now Epstein's really a whole other, like, a
Right.
volcano erupted. There's not one American that I know that wasn't awake. I was at a hair salon, and they're kind of there's more liberals in there, obviously, in a hair salon, right? Because I'm in the DC area, and so they're not really Trump people, but I we brought up the Epstein, and they were sick. They said, this is not a red or blue issue. This is a child issue. And anybody
Yes.
who touches a child, they're like, we need to go back to the French where they just sat there in a public and just chopped your head off for touching a child. And I thought, whoa. This is
Yeah.
really touching America. It doesn't
Yep.
have anything to do with red, blue, whatever, nothing.
No.
People are really disgusted about this. And so I said somewhere I was on a live feed or something, and I said, guys, I'm going to tell you something. For the sake of humanity, all of you wicked, all of you who have traitors, wicked, evil, corrupt, if I were you, I would take the flesh accountability. I would say, lock me up. I surrender. Put me away, because you do not want the wrath of God. I
Yeah,
promise
yeah,
you. I promise you.
that's right.
Go sit in a jail, repent for what you've done, and then let God figure it out for you in the jail, because you don't want the wrath of God. That's what I
Yeah,
said. You don't want it. You don't know what you're asking for, because the wrath of God is going to take you out and wipe you out faster. And you're not even going to you're going to end up in hell, burning to death for the rest of your ever living being. That's what's going to
yeah.
happen. So I would take the sitting in prison for life over being in a burning body. Have you ever spoken to someone who says they died, gone to hell, come back to tell about it? They don't even wish. They don't. I've heard testimonies from cartel people who've died, gone to hell, come back and said, I don't wish this upon my worst cartel person.
No. Well, I wanna end on a high note. I wanna
I
end on a
know.
great note.
I'm sorry.
So
We've gone
so
over an hour.
I know that's okay, but I wanna just end on a high note where really, God is in control. The white hats, the good guys outnumber the bad guys. We're moving in the right direction, and it's gonna be an incredible journey. There's gonna be some hiccups along the way, I'm sure, but 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 with God in control, we win.
Hmm. That's right.
And that's how it is. And so I mean, Trisha, and I can't thank you enough. I mean, you're
Thank you.
you're I obviously people that stands up next to Donald Trump has to have a fire and a backbone, and
That's
and
right.
and and you are that. And
Thank you.
obviously you have to be able to stand up for that. So thank you so much for spending time with us and letting us get to know you and your fire, and
It's
just
God's
keep doing
fire.
God's
It's
work.
God's fire. God's fire.
Yes, it is. Just
Yeah.
keep doing everything. And Trisha, yes, go
I
ahead.
just wondered if, Bianca, is there any last words or anything that you want to tell people out there about what can they do now, or what's your immediate action item?
So, my call to action is number one. Anybody, if you don't know me and you don't know how to follow me or find me, I'm Bianca for Texas on all social media platforms. You can go to biancafortexas.com. Our website for our organization is latinosforamerica1st.org. So that's first and foremost. Second, my call to action is, as much as I sometimes get discouraged too, because I see the no accountability in this country and I see everything that's happening, but I urge all of our people, the same way we overcame 2016 and 2024 by showing up in numbers. You don't realize the power that you have as American citizens to go vote in a primary. Okay. The general election is not the most important thing, it's the
Exactly.
primary. In order to rid of all of these traitors, neocons, politicians who've been in office for 40 years, the
Yeah.
primary is where it counts. And so, as much as you're disgusted with the fact that there's been no accountability, you need to and must go vote in your primary. You
Mhm.
have to. You have to outdo. Now, everybody's like, well, we don't have an election, but I understand that. But again, we haven't had fair elections in decades. So, how did we win 2016 and 24? By overcoming the election fraud. We have to
Mhm.
overcome it. So you have to bring 5 to 10 people to vote with you. You have to duplicate the vote. You have to,
Mhm.
because I think Seth Keshel has gone and said, hey, they kind of have a mathematical, they know exactly how many people, how many fake votes they need to stay in power. So we have to overcome that ratio, right? So how do we do it? We're bodies. They cannot negate our votes if we come out in numbers. So my call to action is no matter how frustrated you are. Send in new people. Okay. When the Lord says, rise an army, you, American people, have the opportunity to rise an army and send in new reinforcements into capital that are not owned by lobbyists, not owned by any political system. Send them in as reinforcements to get the job done because you're not owned by anybody. If you
Right.
continue to send the same people in, we're going to get the same results.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's not an option. You can't just stay home, not vote, and then let the Democrats win everything so that you can go back and say what? Now we're going to just have 2 years of impeachment.
Right.
So
Yep.
literally, guys, we have the opportunity state to state to go to the primary in the most heaviest numbers you can ever imagine, that we outdo the rigged system and we send in fresh meat, not owned by anybody. And that's
Yes.
what my call to action is you cannot bow down. Again, we can't sit here and be like, oh, well, nothing's happening, so who cares? That's not an
Right.
option. It's not an
Yep.
option, guys. You're
Yes.
not to give up authority in your territory. You take
Right.
that territory back. General Flynn says local action equals national impact. What's local
Yes.
action? Your congressmen, your governors, your state reps, your senators, your councilmen, your mayors, your school boards. Local action is going to equal national impact. That's the only way to do it. There's no other way
Absolutely.
other than
Yep.
praying about it. But then
Mhm.
faith without the works is dead. So you got to do both. You got to pray, then you got to actually do the work. So
Absolutely.
really, doesn't take you that long to go vote, guys. I'm not asking you to go march in the streets like the Democrats. I'm not asking you to do anything. Go freaking vote and take people with you.
Yes.
And you have to tell people how important this is.
Yes, great, great message, and that was just wonderful, and your passion just flies through the screen. Oh my gosh, it's
Thank
just
you.
too awesome. So thank you so much for spending Saturday
Thank
evening
you.
with us. I mean,
Thank
you
you
were
so
just
much.
so wonderful, and I'm so glad that people got to, those of you that don't know you, got to know you a little bit more, and you're keep the fire, lady. You're just
Thank you so
you're
much.
awesome. The fire for
Thank
God.
you, guys. God
Thank
bless
you,
you.
B.
Thank you for having me. And anytime, y'all, if y'all ever need to
Okay.
bring me back on, now y'all know all my background, so you don't need to have me on for an hour and 30
Yes.
minutes. So
That
Yes.
just flew by though. I mean, that was so awesome. I mean, you are
thank you
so
so much. I know
fierce.
I have, it's like you asked me for my back. I'm like, okay, we're going to go through this. But now
Yes.
people understand a little bit more, about me, where I come from, where, how I got to where I'm at. Right.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
You are
thank
such an
you.
inspiration, and I
Thank you, guys. Thank you so
so
Keep
much.
fighting.
Thank
Keep
you,
fighting,
women.
Bianca.
Well,
yay!
thank you
Okay.
so much. We'll keep on fight, right?
Fight, fight,
So
fight.
Fight, fight.
fight,
Exactly.
fight, fight. Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Thank
God bless
Take
you.
care.
you. Bye.
God bless all your audience, and God bless the United States of America, and God bless
You.
Donald J. Trump.
Yes. God bless you. Bye. Thank you.